going to bring in two guests from across the pond, if you will. Ahmed Twaij is a journalist and filmmaker whose bylines include The Independent, The Guardian, Foreign Policy, and more. His latest piece is There Are Lots of Reasons to End the British Monarchy. King Charles III is the best. And we're bringing in Mish Rahman, who is an elected member of the National Executive Committee for the Labour Party and also elected vice chair of Momentum, which is the largest left-wing campaign group in the UK set up to support Jeremy Corbyn during his time as leader. He's a socialist and trade unionist as well. Hi, how are you?
We're good. Can you hear us?
Yes, we can. Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. So I wanted to start with you, Ahmed, because you wrote an op-ed. There are lots of reasons to end the British monarchy. King Charles III is the best. Now, isn't it illegal in England to call for the end of the monarchy? I'm not even joking. It sounds like a corny joke, but
no, it's not illegal. Republicans do exist, and that's Republican in the sense of people who believe in having a democratically led constitution instead of a monarchy. So it's not illegal. Right. So like Jeremy Corbyn was famously a Republican.
And obviously, as you mentioned, Republicans in the English context is very different. I was under the impression, though, that there was something called the Treason Felony Act of 1848 and that it still hadn't been repealed.
Yeah, as far as I understand, there are certain things that you just cannot say, which can be deemed as treason. But okay. You can open a discussion about it, as in there is still freedom of speech. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I don't want to get you in trouble, so I just want to make sure that I got you on record, on video, saying that. If you need any help, let us know. We can start a petition to free you if anyone knocks on your door. But hopefully that won't happen. But tell us why you wrote this piece, this op-ed that you did. And again, there are lots of reasons to end the British monarchy. King Charles is the best. Charles has no claim to moral leadership, negating any argument that the monarchy remains important as a sober ceremonial force in society.
Yeah, it's an interesting, like for someone who, as in, values the idea of democracy in a sense of people having a say, this whole archaic system of passing down power from one person to the next, with someone who, maybe less educated, less in position. As an example, everyone complains about how did Donald Trump get elected? But actually, people chose to have him in power. Whereas someone like Charles is not someone who's chosen to power, he was just born to that position. So for us to be able to say he is the best man for that role, there's no way to prove that, because it is this inherited process. And so my discussion in the article is actually let's look at some of the issues that Charles has had in his past. And it's things like tax evasion, where the rest of the UK is currently suffering with rising cost of living, inflation, a collapsing NHS, a national health system. He had his money being stored in offshore tax havens, previously in Bermuda, another time in various islands across the world.
Mish, what do you think of Ahmed's argument?
I think it's, first of all, quite refreshing that we're able to have this discussion, because in the UK, we can truly say that the institutional media there has just gone into overdrive with its mourning. And obviously, this discussion needs to happen in complete good faith, because it is a sensitive subject because of the timing of it. But if you do away with what the monarchy represents to me, and you do away with the pomp and valor, and you do personalize it, I mean, the death of a 96-year-old woman who's been in power for 70 years and is always seen smiling, is always on telly is smiling, or in the newspapers or on coins and notes, and she's no more, she's died. And obviously we know she's someone's mother, she's someone's grandma, and millions of people in the UK do adore her, and rightly, in their opinion, they are grieving for someone they adore. But if you take away the personality now and you look at the institution that she represents, the monarchy, the crown, the regal institution of it all, and this service and duty that we regularly hear, how does this institution benefit the interests of me, a working class brown man who's born of immigrants in a Western white majority country? And as Ahmed says, why during a cost of living crisis, when people can't eat or heat, or either choosing between eating or heating, is an unelected head of state being able to transfer millions and millions of pounds worth of property from one monarch to another without any inheritance tax or the sovereign grant, which Ahmed refers to in his piece for NBC News. And when people are working 2, maybe 3 jobs and still can't make ends meet, one ruler passes on to another ruler these millions and millions of pounds of unearned wealth. And meanwhile, with today, Ahmed is probably aware as well, we're told that up to 100 of his staff who used to work for him when he was Prince of Wales, they're being made redundant and not taken into or amalgamated into the king's new household. So while he inherits these millions, he's literally sacked 100 of his own staff.
I don't know if the American audience understands the kinds of entitlements that the monarchy gets or the benefits of being part of the crown. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so one of the
Like,
things
yeah.
that Mish was mentioning was the sovereign grant, which equates to about $100 million a year that the royal family has as guaranteed income from UK taxpayer money. And actually, last year the royal family overspent, so they overspent by 17%. So the British government compensated that overspending by giving them an extra 26 million over the next 2 years. So this is like UK, whilst we're like suffering with inflation and cost of living and everyone's feeling the squeeze, our own tax money is going to benefit the the royal family, despite them having their own private income. This is not like, let's forget about what they do in their public standing. They have their own private income. They own their own properties. They have their own businesses. Like Prince Charles has various businesses or King Charles now had various businesses that he owned. So they do have these kind of benefits. Another thing that Mish was mentioning is that in 1992, the royals during inheritance, they used to have to pay inheritance tax, but after 1992, a new law came in to say that they no longer have to pay inheritance tax. Whereas for the average citizen, if your parents pass away and you let's say you inherit the property of your parents, you have to pay 50% inheritance tax on that property. Whereas obviously Charles is going to walk around Buckingham Palace, all the other palaces, all the money that the Queen had just becomes his without having to pay a penny. So these are kind of some of the benefits that they have. And they spend it on some ludicrous things. There was one time Prince Charles spent, I think it was $30,000 on it just for a private chartered flight to go to the premiere of a James Bond movie. Another time he paid for a helicopter for a 70-mile journey to go watch a polo match. So these are some of the questionable things that have happened in his past. And this is somebody who claims to promote climate change and support those things. And these are the other interactions. So this like dichotomy of what's going on does lead to some questionable thoughts.
And what is the atmosphere like now in England? I mean, you have a 10-day period of mourning. When you're walking around, does it feel like people are sad, or what's the media coverage like? I mean, I don't think that anything is able to be covered. I think Chris Hedges wrote that Extinction Rebellion canceled something that they were going to do. So it seems like everything's on pause.
It seems to be we're in a state of institutionally forced mourning. I mean, people are going about their everyday business. I'm not in London, but I will be in London on the day of the funeral, so I will be able to check it out. I'm not going for the funeral itself. I'm
Sure.
going for an already agreed a meeting with a bunch of people. But look, the most important thing is while we are in this state of forced mourning, the monarchy aren't waiting for anybody. They're pressing ahead with their exchange of power, and that's from one head of state to another. While the reason for this is nothing more than to save the one and only institution which matters to them, to the wealthy ruling class, and that's the preservation of their class, the preservation of the family of Windsor, which has been in power for about 1,000 years or whatever, and whose fortune, as we know, has been made at the misfortune of others. Yes, from slavery to empire. I mean, there may be sorrow now, as we heard when Barbados was handed over, but there never was any real apology, and there may be anguish and regret, but there's never been any reparations either. So I think these are questions that fundamentally have to be asked at one point or another.